right now? Where are they? Is the window closing Farzy? Is it still open? Is it glim? Is it doom and gloom? Where are you, Farzy, on this football team right now?
I'm as far as Sean Mannion's offense will be willing to take them. That's where I am. I mean, it's still the biggest question mark. I mean, I know a lot of people are still debating like Jalen Hurts. Like Jalen's great. I don't have an issue with Jalen Hurts. They moved on from Kevin Patullo again after 1 year, and they said, okay, we do this thing with coaches with coordinators where if they don't have experience, we don't do well. So let's go and get someone with less experience, almost none, actually, next to no experience, and run it. So I'm skeptical about Sean Mannion, and I'm also skeptical about everyone talking about how brilliant this guy is, yet nobody else was knocking down his door to be their offensive coordinator. So that always takes me back. I don't care how many coaches the Eagles hire like this that end up having success, whether it's Andy Reid, whether it's Doug Peterson, whether it's Nick Sirianni. I have issues when the guy doesn't have any experience, and that's been the problem, especially when you're talking about the offensive coordinator of the Eagles, where you get the Eagles a coordinator that at least doesn't draw his play up in crayon, and they seem to have a lot of success. So Sean Mannion, I love hearing from Nick Sirianni. There's a hard worker and all that stuff, but we're not going to know what he has to offer until we actually see it. The one little nugget that we got from Nick Sirianni yesterday when he was addressing the reporters was he's a hard worker and play action passing. When you look at the Eagles and how they played against Minnesota, right. When they play against the Minnesota Vikings last year, you saw maybe the way this offense is going to look more, how they're going to look or use a lot of that play action more the way they used it in Minnesota. And that win, and after that win, Jalen came out, and whether you want to believe him or not, he said, I've been trying to get more play action called here. I want to do more play action and all that. So maybe Sean Mannion, under center, play action passes, setting up the pass with the run, bootlegs, rollouts, all that stuff. Maybe you're going to see a little bit more of that from Jalen Hurts in this quote-unquote Sean Mannion offense.
I'm more interested in what color crayon do you think he used? The turquoise blue was always my favorite.
Maybe, but I'll tell you this much. It was not the 64 pack with the sharpener in the back. You know what I'm saying? It was probably just that standard garden variety. Awful.
Wow, yes. Yeah. Only the rich kids got the sharpener.
That's true. I never had that. Never had the sharpener, man.
A crown sharpener, guys. I can't say I ever used a crown sharpener.
A crayon sharpener. Yeah, you're too young. Yeah.
No, they had them. I didn't use them though. I barely used a sharpener for the pencils, Johnny Mac. I was a minute. Yeah.
Right in the box, you had a sharpener. You had a crayon sharpener. That you were living large if you had the crayon sharpener.
Kids with the sharpener and the power wheels. They had life. They had it made.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously, they wanted Mike McDaniel. They wanted Brian Daboll. So it's always the spin from there, Mark. And sometimes it works out. They didn't want Doug Peterson. They didn't want Nick Sirianni, and it worked out. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. But I do think I'm amazed how quickly that recedes to the background. And he becomes 33-year-old, 2 years off the field, wonderkind. He's gonna change everything. I saw a bunch of descending players last year, Marc Farzetta, a bunch of guys, and they're not that old, but we know how quickly things change and how fluid things get in the NFL. And you talk about the injury issues on the offensive line. AJ didn't look the same. I think of all of the players, I've said this pretty consistently, of the entire offense, the only player that maintained or got better last season was Devontae Smith. I get it. Didn't work out with Kevin Patullo. Blame him all you want. But how do you get over the hurdle of a bunch of guys having down seasons all coming back? Or generally it doesn't work that way in the NFL.
Yeah. First off, when it comes to the experience factor and all that stuff with Mannion, all that goes out the window, and I hope it does. I mean, look at a guy like Kellen Moore. I mean, he hadn't done anything, then all of a sudden he's calling plays for Mike McCarthy for the Cowboys, and then he made a name for himself, obviously. Yeah. So if you're good, nobody cares about your experience. I mean, people like to look at experience because it gives you the warm and fuzzies. It lets you know what you're going to bring to the table, sometimes good, sometimes bad. there's experience, like Billy Davis had experience. That defense wasn't any good. Now you look at a guy like Sean Mannion, 0 experience, but if he's good, nobody's going to care that he didn't do it anywhere else. But as far as like a guy like DeVonta Smith might be the most focused athlete in all of Philadelphia. Like, of all the noise that could go on around him, he just wants to take advantage of every opportunity that is presented to him. And although nobody wants to see him block ever, when he's asked to do it, he at least gives full effort in doing it. Like, everything you could ask of him, aside from the obvious, great at going up and catching the football, great in making sure he can get yards after the catch if that opportunity is presented to him. Everything he can do, he checks every box. I'm curious. I will say this. If things do move in the direction a lot of people expect with A.J. Brown, you're looking at DeVonta Smith being that number one guy. And if there's anybody that Nick Sirianni singled out yesterday, it was DeVonta Smith. And it was funny, after he answered the question about A.J. Brown, he's a member of our team, he's on our team, blah, blah, blah. Right away, nobody cared. I mean, they got the stock answer they thought they were going to get. And then right away, the next question, I think it was from Tim McManus, he asked the question, so how do you proceed, Nick, in planning for the season when you don't know if you're going to have A.J. Brown? And it was just like they completely ignored the garden variety answer. And he said, well, you got to make sure you look at guys like DeVonta Smith that, could step up if need be. And I think everyone looks at DeVonta Smith and looks at his work ethic and looks at his talent and says, this guy has even more to offer the National Football League than what we have seen from him already. As far as declining players, I mean, my 2 biggest blames of last year's demise, one was Kevin Patullo, and then 1A would be how terrible the offensive line was. And I don't think the offensive line is all of a sudden bad at football or anything. I just think they were extremely banged up. And I find it very curious, to say the least, that you have 2 guys go to Columbia to get medical attention. Okay. You talk about these guys not being old. Landon Dickerson already talking about retirement, or that report being out there. Him trying to get a flourishing TikTok following with his DIYs with his lovely misses. Good for him. Yeah. But that to me does have one foot out the door type of aura around it, unfortunately. And I normally would have confidence in, okay, yeah, bounce back here with the offensive line because Jeff Stoutland just sprinkles a little offensive line pixie dust on these guys and they're good to go. But now you have another unknown quantity. There's bigger questions, certainly, as you mentioned, outside of Kevin Patullo, but I think going in another direction is something they needed to do. And the only thing that'll really help put them over the top, even if Sean Mannion isn't even as good as Kevin Patullo, scary thought for a lot of people. If the offensive line dominates, that means Saquon Barkley can dominate and everything else falls in place after that.
Well, Farzy, then who bears the burden to this year on the offense? Is it Jalen has to be responsible for getting the offense better? Is it, you said Patullo is problem one. Does that mean that Sean Mannion and the staff are responsible? Is it Nick Sirianni? Who do you think has the biggest burden when it comes to trying to get this offensive line or this offense as a whole back on track?
Well, I think if it's another downward trending year, like miss the playoffs and it's ugly, I mean, Sirianni's donezo. I don't think the Eagles go, all right, let's give him another offensive coordinator. I don't think that's how it works at all. So if you're talking about who has the most responsibility, it comes on Nick Sirianni. The guy where you have the biggest ask to come in and save it is Sean Mannion. I mean, this is the guy. This is the one position in flux for the Eagles that if this isn't good, the team's not a Super Bowl contender. Jalen has been to 2 Super Bowls with 2 different coordinators and won one. Not the problem. The offensive line, they come back healthy and they look good. They're obviously not going to be the problem. We've seen them have bounce back years in the past. But the one guy that the Eagles are calling upon to say, be the difference, is the coordinator. I'm done with the, is Jalen Hurts the guy? That question. He's the guy. And I hope he's the guy for the next 10, 15 years in Philadelphia. The guy that has to be the guy has to be great at his job, or at least decent at his job, actually, is Sean Mannion. That's the change the Eagles made. And you can't say Mike McDaniels is the guy, Brian Daboll's is the guy, or Brian Daboll's the guy, and then say, oh, well, we didn't get them, so now what? And then go to the least experience of the bunch and not have that work. That is a tremendous dice roll for the Eagles to go to a guy that doesn't have that experience, that has, played for Sean McVay, played under guys like, Clint Kubiak and these guys, to see what, to glom any kind of offense from them. Kevin O'Connell, bring in guys like that, and all of a sudden use that type of scheme, that Shanahan McVay scheme, install it, and then have it not work. So he's the guy that's being looked at right now as the guy that has to be, if you want to call it that, the savior of the Philadelphia Eagles in the upcoming season.
Two things with the savior aspect of it. One, that's not fair for anybody. It's certainly not fair for Sean Mannion. But they interviewed 17 guys, and there were 7 finalists, and they hired 3. Does that come? Do you look at that as an insurance policy? And then the second part is, because I'm with you with Jalen Hurts, and this is my biggest part. Like, why do people want to change Jalen Hurts? We've already seen the height of Jalen Hurts. Like that Nick tells a lot of stories, and all our eyes roll when he brings up Larry Karras. But his best story ever, Marc Farzetta, was he told the story when he interviewed to be the offensive coordinator there. And Larry Karras kind of baited him and said, all right, what kind of offense do you want to run? And he started giving the answer, what he thought, like everybody in a job interview. We try to put our best foot forward. And Larry Karras slammed the table out. That's where Nick gets it and says, you don't even know who your players are. In other words, build your damn offense around your players. Why are people trying to change a unique, successful quarterback? So that was a long-winded, I apologize. But insurance policy, why? Why are we trying to change Jalen Hurts?
So I don't agree with anyone that wants to change. Yeah, the things Jalen wants to get better at. Yeah, and he's kind of gotten better at those things as his career is going on. I mean, it still amazes me that people will still put out on social media with their name on it, Jalen can't throw a deep ball. And it's like, what are we missing? And Johnny Mac, I think it was even your question to Jalen maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
When you asked him about, hey, that deep ball, you throw the deep ball rather well. Where's that bit? Whatever. And he's like, hold on, could you repeat that? Because I'm not used to hearing that. And I just thought that was a great moment for him. It was a great moment. But as far as the insurance policy with these other coaches, if anything was honest from Nick Sirianni yesterday, that might have been a little bit insightful. If there was ever a matchup of either of those two things and anything Nick Sirianni had to say in his half hour yesterday, it was the insurance policy factor. Grizzard, Gerard Johnson, these guys being here because they have done the job of being an offensive coordinator, or at least called plays. Like even Parks Frazier called plays for the depleted Colts coaching staff under Jeff Saturday, Yeah. So if Sean Mannion can't call plays, or if Sean Mannion's great at calling plays, and the vicious cycle that you're in with your offensive coordinator continues, where he's either fired or gets a head coaching job, then you have somebody else to step in and hopefully not leave with Sean Mannion, but stay here in Philadelphia and take off right from where they left off, pick up from where they left off before they left for their next job where they were fired. So Nick even admitted to the idea of it being an insurance policy. And I thought he was going down dark territory there for a second when he was answering the question, because he didn't say insurance policy, but he did say we have guys in the position that could take over if, and I was like at the edge of my seat, like, if what? If it doesn't work out, if another guy gets hired, what? And he was like, if a guy, leaves, which has been a problem when we have success as an offense. And I go, all right, that's the optimistic way to look at it. And certainly if you're Nick Sirianni, that's the way you want to look at it. So I don't even think it's a question anymore. Absolutely. You talked to these guys, you interviewed these guys, you liked them enough to bring them in. You were curious enough. You liked what you saw even in second interviews to say you still want them on their staff.